All right, guys, we are leading into deer season finally. Before this thing all kicks off, this is episode 2010. This is your boy East Coast Trev, and I'm joined
2010?
oh crap, 210, and I'm joined. I'm just excited, man. There's a lot of excitement there. This is your boy East Coast Trev, and I'm joined by good buddy Mr. Asshole Madman
You
Mardik.
already know. What up?
Oh, dude,
Jesus, you are a mess.
Yeah, well, you know what, man? I'm just getting excited. This is actually our last Hunt Stock podcast. The last one that we had recorded up in Westminster, Massachusetts, at Hunt Stock at the Wildwood Farm. I wish we did a bunch more, but we did 4 from there, and they were all great episodes. There was Shiloh with Shatner Stuff. There was Backwoods Sense, Backyard Sense. Austin, which is from the Big Woods Bucks here. And what was the last one that we recorded there? I'm missing one, no?
Primitive Patriot.
Primitive Patriot, that's right. Josh from Primitive Patriot, who's actually out
He's
hunting.
actually elk hunting right now. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So some great podcasts, some great people that we met from there. Learned a ton while we were there from all of these guys. It was great to have them on. So this is the last one. We had a good podcast with Austin. And it's just good. It's something a little bit different. I know it's a little bit early in the season, but we want to get you guys kind of on the track of, oh, wow, that was good there, tracking on the track of just thinking about, snow season and all that good stuff. Austin's a real good dude. He's part of the Big Woods Bucks crew, and it was super good. So, Steve, are you ready for season, man?
I am beyond ready.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I'm shooting about 120 arrows a day right now. Bow is fucking dialed in, baby.
That's good.
Starting to put the pack together. I got some new gear this year as far as new camera arm, new platform from Latitude. So just kind of dialing in how I'm going to pack everything, and everything in my pack has its home, right? Like everything goes in the same place every time I go to hunt, and it's just kind of tweaking things and figuring out what's going to go where and what makes the most sense and all that stuff. So by the time the season opens, I will be a finely tuned machine.
Yeah, I am completely and utterly opposite of you. I messed with my camera arm. I got a new camera with screen, microphone. I went all out. I got a absolutely pristine camera. Super excited. Was able to mess around with that. I gotta wash all my camo still. I have one preset for the season and one camera in the woods. That is not like me. There's still 11 of them in a box. I'm sorry. There's 11 more cameras that could potentially go out. Some of them are still out. I'm still waiting to write. Yeah, they're soaking. Still writing my article on soaking cameras, scent-free soaking cameras. But no.
It's like an Easter egg hunt. Like you're gonna be like mobile hunting, and you're gonna be like, "Oh shit, there's a camera. Oh wait, that's mine."
Well, that's the thing. Like, some of them I don't even know where they are anymore. And if they're missing, they're missing. It is what it is. I donated them to the woods, but it's all good. It is what it is, man. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a real good season. I think it's shaping up to be a good season. A little bit of fun, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So it's super good. On the fishing side, something I can probably talk about a little bit better. The fishing's phenomenal. The albies are around. We got a couple the other day, so that's pretty cool. The false albacore, the toonies, they are around, so that was kind of cool. Some real big bass. We're pushing back into the Connecticut River, so the fall run's starting to kick off. I was sea bass fishing today, so that's kind of cool, and just kind of things are starting to flow. When the stripers start to die off, and the fall fishing, and there's birds busting, and there's peanut bunker, and things like that are kind of starting to get kicking, that it's time that the rut is that much closer. Like the fall, the leaves are changing, cooler. It didn't feel like it today. It was like 105 index, but it was. But I know that the fall is turning, dude. I know it's so gross.
You see the temps for next week though?
Yeah. So after Saturday,
we got this little heat wave, and then it's like high 60s.
Yeah.
It's gonna.
I'm hoping that it stays like
hoodies,
that.
bro.
I know. I'm hoping, dude. I know the Shelton hoodies are going to be kicking for season. I was kind of nervous.
It looks like it's the temperature drop's going to hold through opening day and opening weekend, I mean, you can't complain. It's just a little early. It's like the temp's going to drop like 4 days before the season opens. But the good news is it's going to stay down through the opener.
Yeah.
So,
Do you remember years past you were in like shorts and a a string bikini when you were up in the tree stand because it was so
dude,
darn hot?
I can remember it being 80 in the first week of November. So I don't even want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. But
Yeah, I hope that it
um,
stays true and that we have a nice, cool opener here for everybody so that they can all enjoy it. I'm hoping it looks like I'm going to be able to hunt on Sunday, the first Sunday on private land. I don't have any trips, so I'm excited about that. I won't be able to get out
nice.
opener, but I'll be able to get out on the 17th, so I'm excited for that. I think it'll be kind of cool. I'm telling you this much: I hope nothing four-legged brown with walks by because it's getting it this year. It's definitely getting it this year. But first off, let's hunt. Let's shout these guys out and let's get on over to Austin, man. I think that
Let's do it up.
we'll think of cold. We were just talking hot. This is gonna cool us down. I promise. Um, we are presented by and title sponsored by Huntworth Gear, huntworthgear.com, the home of get more for less with Huntworth. Some really good stuff. Guys, get on over to Huntworth Gear. There's always some type of sale, percentage off that you guys can always get some type of break. Now's the time to get your Shelton hoodie. And some of your really good early season clothing. Now is the time to have it. It's almost right around the corner. If not, step it up. Get the Elkin, for that November morning. There's some really good stuff in there. Heat Boost. They just came out with the Heat Boost sweater. That thing is huge. I cannot wait to get that thing on. Now is not the time for it, but late season will be the time for that sweater. Nor'easter Game Calls, nor'eastergamecalls.com. The grunt tubes, there is some still for sale on the website. You definitely going to want that come the end of October, early November. So going on over to nor'eastergamecalls.com. Latitude Outdoors, latitudeoutdoors.com. The pre-order for More Carbon Sticks is out. There is X-Wings in stock, 8mm ropes, 10mm ropes, some really good stuff. Make sure to use your promo code Outdoor Drive. Save yourself 15%. I just kicked mine over. I needed some new ropes for the season, so I ordered a
Same.
set of an 8mm and a 10mm.
8mm vapor.
Yeah, so I ordered the
I'm
set.
pumped.
Me too, dude. Especially to have new ropes, and I always change my ropes all the time. That's your lifeline, literally your lifeline. That's gonna make it or break it if you come home at night. So it's always great to spend that money on it, and we'll save you some with the promo code Outdoor Drive. Also, Bowhunters United, bowhuntersunited.com, dude. They are the advocates for you. There is a free side now, so you guys can just get on over there, sign up. If you want to spend the $25, get a hat, some maybe a T-shirt or whatever the case may be in their package for signing up. For the $25 one, you get a little bit more, a month subscription to deer and deer hunting, so on and so forth. The link is below here in the podcast. But, guys, thank you very much. Make sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, even on Spotify, iTunes, or on our YouTube page, so you guys don't miss out on anything that we got going on. A lot of hunting videos. We're dropping some more as they come in. Some doe videos, and the buck videos aren't going to be too far behind. So,
don't forget about the Facebook page, Facebook group.
yeah.
The Outdoor Drive.
Yeah.
It's getting to be that time. Make sure you share your kills with us. I'll shout you out personally on the Killer's Corner.
Oh, yeah. We got to get the Killer's Corner back up and ripping, dude.
Maybe some tales from the tailgate, too, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, time's the time. It's time to start turning her up. So all the good stuff is here to come in the next couple of weeks. So, well, man, what do you think, dude? Should we kick it on over to Austin and get this show on the road?
Yeah, let's stagger on over there.
Let's stagger. That's great. All right, man. Let's go check them out.
The Outdoor Drive Podcast.
Welcome back. Yet another week here in the podcast. We are actually at Huntstock here in Westminster, Massachusetts. This is the second year, man. This is a good show. This is your boy East Coast Trev, and I'm obviously joined with my good buddy Mr. Madman Mardick.
Obviously.
Obviously. While we were here and we were in the show, we decided we'd do a couple of podcasts. I mean, that's kind of what we do. So we bumped in the boys from the Big Woods Bucks. kind of strumming along and doing their thing. They always bring all kinds of hype to them. So we found one of the big bucks. I can't even talk right now. What is going on?
How many of you are there? It's like every time you turn around, you just see another Bigwood Bucks guy.
Oh, I don't know. We probably 20 or so.
So I figured, yeah.
Maybe
What-
2 dozen.
What do you think the gain by having such a big team? Like, what is
Diversity.
really?
Yeah. I mean, we got older guys, younger guys, women, all different ages, different backgrounds, different states, different regions. We got guys from Jersey all the way to northern Maine.
There's Big Woods Bucks in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's some big woods down there. We got guys like Jason Del Plazo lives in Jersey, and he's killed some monsters down there and himself. So
Absolutely. That's awesome. Why don't we turn this key, man? We'll get this thing underway. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do?
So my name is Austin Scheeren. I am from the capital region of New York State. I grew up hunting farmland and hunting in the Adirondack Mountains. So we do a lot of big woods hunting. I do some bow hunting, but mostly I prefer to be in the big woods, either still hunting or tracking, preferably tracking if we have snow, but, we don't always get it. Outside of hunting, I do tree work for a living, and I have a wife. I have a 1-year-old, and that's about it.
Yeah.
My whole life is work, family, hunting, fishing.
Absolutely, man. That's nothing better than that. So you're a big time tracker then, obviously. I mean, that's when I think of big woods bucks, I think of tracking. Obviously, like that's the go-to thing for most of the people on the team is tracking.
Yeah, a lot of guys prefer different things, but tracking is the big thing. That's definitely become the popular attraction because it's very aggressive in general.
Right.
It's an aggressive style of hunting. So when it comes down to it, that is the primary thing. But not everybody has enough snow during deer season to do it. So the farther south you go, the harder it is.
Right.
Like Massachusetts, you might not have snow till the end of the season. Adirondacks, we usually get it about mid-November is when it starts because we get lake effect in the east or in the west side from Tug Hill. But we have quite a few followers from like Pennsylvania. And those guys pretty much all still hunt because they don't have the snow. So the further south you go, the more still hunting you'll have. But tracking is the most popular thing for the general public.
And when you're still hunting, I mean, you're virtually tracking without the snow then, right? I mean, and the reason why we ask this, we're not big trackers at all. Like tracking is not like, I mean, when you say Connecticut, I mean, we're mobile hunting, public land, ag fields if we can, you know what I'm saying? So like it's that style hunting. So tracking is like one of those things that we don't do a ton of. We might still hunt, or if we're tracking, we're going to track on a parcel that's 200 acres instead of in the Adirondacks that's 100,000 acres, right? I mean, like, and you can virtually go wherever you get on that track and you're gone, I guess, right? And
Yeah, yep. Like the Adirondack Park is over 6 million acres of forever wild public land.
Right.
So you have blocks of land that will hunt that's 50, 60,000 acres between roads. You can walk for days. And that is nice, but I look at Neil, he does a lot of bow hunting down here, and all the Massachusetts guys that do suburban bow hunting. That's crazy to me.
right.
Like I think of that and I'm like, man, that sounds so difficult because, access and then dealing with other people. And that's the big thing with hunting up north in the big woods is you just get away from everybody. Like I've never ran into somebody in the woods.
Really?
Yeah. In Maine, it's you might. There's more access, more logging roads. So you kind of go through a block of land, hit a logging road, and cross that. And, a buck will take you all over. But, there's a little more access. But in the Adirondacks, like I said, you could have, 15, 20 miles between roads, and it's a little more difficult to run into somebody because you can go into farther.
So when you're going into this, like you just said, there's not a lot of access roads, and one of the things that I guess understand of tracking is you'll get on those roads and you'll try and cut a track, right? But how do you do that in Adirondacks? How do you narrow down your area of point of entry in those woods to be in the right place?
So the thing with Maine as a whole is it's all logging, so you have different cuts. The deer I feel are more dispersed and even. A little more. I mean, there's pockets where there isn't really much deer activity, but in the Adirondacks, because it's forever wild, the deer aren't usually going to hang out in like open hardwoods. They're going to kind of hang on the edge of the hardwoods and the green growth, and in lowlands or up high, and kind of come in and out of that a little bit and skate it. So there's different things and features, signpost rubs, where you can like figure out generally where they might be. So like me and my father, we study a lot of maps. We'll look at topographic maps, and basically if you have like 4 good peaks that are around 2,000 feet and maybe a finger that comes down into a swamp in the middle of that, you can run all through there and you'll catch a track. And that's how we still hunt too. So, before the day starts, we'll kind of look at a map and go, all right, well, I'm going to go and run this route through here and run around this mountain and through this swamp. And I'm just going to try to always keep the wind in my advantage, either crosswind or in my face, and see if I can't just creep up on one or catch one moving, especially during the rut. Still hunting during the rut's fun because them bucks are like ricocheting off trees. They're everywhere. So you can turn the odds in your advantage a little bit, or else you could just be walking. Like open hardwoods is great because you can see, but they usually don't hang out in there.
Right.
So you got to kind of, it takes time and practice and experience to figure out where to look for them.
So is like still hunting or track? Well, you're not really going to track during the rut, right? You're more or less going to still hunt because you're not really going to have snow in the Adirondacks. Yeah,
our rut usually is about the first week in November until about Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And if there's snow, I'm tracking.
Right.
I don't care if they're rutting or not. I mean, they're going to take you for a walk.
Right.
But a lot of the time, if you track them during the rut, there's a good chance you'll have another buck intersect chasing a doe or scent checking or just on his run because he's distracted and he probably ain't paying attention very good. So,
have you ever had any like crazy occurrences while you're tracking or still hunting during the rut or tracking during the rut where like something crazy like happened? Because I could only imagine because I know like not still hunting, but stand hunting, like you could virtually, as long as you're on, certain runs or whatever, like anything could happen. But like still hunting, that's a whole nother level because now you have a ton of bucks and you're moving, they're moving. So there's got to be something that you've had that was just like out of this world that would have happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange when they're chasing and they'll come like cruising right in front of you sometimes and you don't expect them. Like I was on a buck and I ended up killing him, but I was running out of snow and like almost bare ground tracking him. And, I was making all sorts of noise and motion, and I'm trying to figure out where he's going. And I'm like, I could tell he was moving pretty good by his, stagger, his stride, and everything. And I was like, man, he's probably lit out, But I was right by the lake, and he ended up doubling back on his track, coming back out, and he walked 6 yards in front of me. He never even knew I was there.
Had no idea.
No idea. He was just, and he wasn't walking slow. He was just that was it. So. It's just wild,
And that you brought up a real valid point. Like a lot of the times when you have like stand hunting, when you have a mature buck chasing a doe, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna come around. Like you have that mindset in your mind when you're stand hunting. Like if a big buck goes by and you don't get the shot and it's chasing that doe, there's a good chance in the next couple of minutes it might backtrack where that doe is gonna come flying back by you. Mm-hmm. So like that's the thing with tracking, I would imagine, or still hunting. When you're on a buck and it's after a doe, it might circle back. So then you might meet head on.
Yeah.
Instead of like tracking in the snow late season, that deer is going to continuously go on. You know, right?
Yep.
I mean,
generally, if you have a buck and a doe together and you bump them both and they split, you can almost follow the doe and bet money that buck's going to come back to her track and chase her down again.
Really?
So you can kind of poke along on that, try to catch them coming back. If you bump them, you can grunt at them or use a bleat can, and what they'll usually do is just out of sight, they'll circle downwind because they want to catch your scent and know what you are if they haven't really got a good look at you. So what I'll do is I'll usually like grunt at him a couple times, and then I'll try to back out and I'll sneak downwind and try to catch him coming downwind. You play like a chess match.
Right.
And that's just, experience and trial and error. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
You can do different things. Like if he's going over this mountain or he's cutting around the edge, he's going to go around the other side. You can kind of run over the top and try to come down on him, and you're playing a game, and it's a little more active. Like I can't sit still.
Right.
So like bow season, I'll sit, or sit in a saddle or whatever, and I can do that for a little while. But by the time rifle season hits, I'm like, all right, We got to get the legs
You
moving.
got to get going.
Yeah.
I mean, have you tracked on a deer for a extensive, long period of time? Because like we were talking pre podcast, and you're like 11 o'clock, and like you start obviously in the morning,
Oh,
so
yeah.
like you'll literally track a deer all day long until you get on that deer.
Yeah, like there's been days I'm not usually when I'm tracking, I'm not usually in the woods until at least light, if not a little after. I'm not in a huge rush because especially if you get fresh snow, give the deer time to make tracks. Because you can get in there right as it turns light and blow through the woods, and you might have a buck come through 15 minutes later across your track. So you never know. So I'm not in a huge rush in the morning, but usually by 8 o'clock I'm, at least getting in the woods. And I've gone right to dark and never caught a track.
Never caught a track.
Yeah, I mean, I've caught some small tracks,
Right.
but nothing big. I have gone days where I haven't seen a single deer track.
Really?
Yeah, you get like that first big snow of the year, and they get freaked out, for like a day or two, and they'll hunker down and they just don't move because they're exposed and they know it.
Right.
When it's fall time and there's no snow, they can hide pretty well, but you get a good blanket of snow and everything, they stick out like a sore thumb, and they know it.
So they'll just lay down for a couple of days, then you kind of wait,
Yeah.
and then you kind of try to get back on that track if you can, or
Yep.
find a track in that area.
Yeah, they'll get up and they'll wander a little bit, but unless you blow right through where they're laying down, it's hard to get them. But yeah, I've had, like, especially during the rut, you can chase them all day and never catch them. Like,
'Cause they're just going.
Yeah, I've gone in the morning, run around, catch a track, maybe 10 o'clock, and like you can just tell he's cruising, and like if he's cruising, I'm gonna cruise,
Right.
and I'll chase him down all day and never catch him, never bump him, nothing.
Have you ever come back the next morning and pick up the same track, or do you usually just try to cut a new track the next day?
Usually I'll try to cut a new track if I'm having a hard time finding a good track, and that's becoming a thing. Then what I'll do is, if I do finally get a good one, I'll track them until dark, and then I might come back the next day for them just because I know it's there.
Right.
Especially late season because they don't go very far. They're tired. That's my favorite time to track them.
Because they're just beat up and they don't continually go.
They just want to bed down and feed. That's it. So, if you get on a track, you can go really slow and just kind of be methodic and catch them.
You made a good point there that I want to go back on. When you can read that track as far as what are you looking for when you can tell the speed of that animal. So you can tell when he's cruising, and you know that you need to cruise too, because if you go too fast and he's cruising, you're never going to catch him. But if you can read that track and you can tell maybe he's slowed down, like maybe he's not, now he's feeding a little bit, then you now need to slow down to like kind of match that animal's speed. What are you looking for in the track to know when it's time to speed up and when it's time to slow down?
All right. So, yeah, that's a good question. So when I get a track, I cross the track. First thing I do is I look at, the size of the hoof print, how far apart they are side to side, and for the stagger of it.
Yep.
And then I look for the stride length. So generally you can have good rack bucks with small feet, especially in the Adirondacks. I've seen it, but generally the hoof will be pretty big. And then if the stride is really long, but it still has a pretty good stagger, then it's probably a good buck. He's just cruising. But if he's got a short stride and a big stagger, he's slower.
You got to explain to the listeners what I know what it is,
Yeah.
but I don't think a
So-
lot of people know what stagger means.
Stagger is the distance between its right and left feet. And then what that is they have, like, bucks, they're like men. They have wider chests than women do. And their back legs always go where their front feet go. So the wider that their front legs are apart, the bigger chest they have, the older they are. Right. And that's what the stagger is. So if you have anywhere between 8 to 10 inches of stagger, that's a big buck.
Mm.
And you can usually use a stick to draw a line on each side, and you'll have a good gauge. And then, so what I'll do is I'll follow it, not slow, but just kind of see what he's doing a little bit, go slow. And when they're going like real straight line, the stride's real long, their stagger is shrunk up a little bit, then they're just checking for does. They're just moving. And you want to keep that pace with them, or else you're never going to catch them, because they might do, 20 miles in a day. Like
Cruising.
Yeah, just cruising. And those are the hard ones to catch. But if you're following a buck and he's cruising pretty good and he makes like a sudden move right or left, or does something weird, maybe backtracks, and then kind of wanders. And if he starts slow, like see the stride shorten up, and you see the tracks kind of wandering a little bit more, just pay attention because you'll probably see where he's feeding. He'll either be pawing the ground or nipping at buds, eating mushrooms off trees. Once he starts feeding, he's going to lay down because they have to. Deer have to lay down and chew their cud. And that's when you're getting close. Usually when they start feeding, usually they're within 200-300 yards bedded down or getting ready to bed down. Now, if it's an older track, he might not be bedded anymore, but he might be.
Right.
And age in a track is the most common question and is the hardest one to explain. You just have to look at if it's crusty, powdery, and see like what your boot track looks like compared to that buck track. As far as like, is it crusty? Is it powdery? Is it melted? Is it frozen?
Yeah.
And
the edge is defined.
Yep.
Kind of. Yeah.
And you'll see where like when they step and they lift their foot out, you get the little snowballs that fall on top. And it doesn't take long for them to freeze. Like the evaporation that naturally happens, they'll freeze back to the surface snow. So you can kind of mess with them a little bit, and if they move and they're real free, then you're probably right behind them, Now, if it's like 34 degrees, it's a little harder because everything's kind of soft and wet. But when it's crispy, 32 or below, you basically can get a good idea. Or like they'll walk through some puddles, you see where it's froze or not froze, or when they start dragging water out, it might be, you just start getting a feel for it. It's hard to explain. There's general things you can explain, and then the rest of it's just experience. You kind of just look at it and you're like, okay, it's newer, it's not, but that's kind of the gist of how I follow a buck.
Is there like you hear all these stories and guys say how tough it is, there's a lot of people that go into the woods and try and track, but they're unsuccessful because of, is it just lack of experience, or is it in learning all this? Because it's not an easy thing to just grasp and hold on to and be successful.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with it is overthinking. That's the biggest thing. You get like an abundance of knowledge because you read all the books, you watch all the videos, you go to all the seminars, and there's so much information coming at you. You're trying to catalog everything. And what you really should do is, to anybody that wants to get into tracking is, read a book, watch a video, a couple of them. It's exciting to watch. Read them. It's good. But take everything at face value. You'll remember key things that are big, but get on a track, follow any track, and let it teach you. Because that's the best teacher in the world is a deer. That's the only way you're going to get good at it is experience and really learning from what you're seeing and not so much from what other people are saying.
Right.
It's good to ask questions. If you see something strange and you don't understand it, ask. But you have to just go into it with an open-minded.
So in itself, it's just like, guys that are trophy hunting or whatever to try and learn those deer to be put in the right spot, whether it's saddle hunting or stand hunting or whatever. Like, you're not going to just go in the woods and shoot, for you guys, a 200-pound deer. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's the luck part of it, but like to consistently kill deer on the track is just like consistently killing mature deer from the stand because of experience. Like, I know that this deer is going to do this on this wind in this place. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's kind of like that, I guess.
Yeah, you play everything to your advantage, but the biggest thing is the track will tell you what you're following. There are some variations. You can have, big deer with smaller racks. You can have smaller feet, smaller strides, and have giants. And it all depends on where you are too, because like Maine, they're farther north, so they have bigger bodied deer. Like, that's why they have 200 pound is the goal. Where in the Adirondacks, I would say like a real nice buck is 180 pounds. So the average deer, like good buck size, is smaller because they're not as far north. They don't need the extra mass. So when I go to Maine, I'm following tracks that are like a good-sized doe because I'm used to a big buck track, and the Adirondacks is much smaller. And a guy from Maine will come to the Adirondacks and be like, man, I can't find a good buck because he's looking for these giant deer that just don't – there are 200-pounders in the Adirondacks, but not many. So that's the biggest thing. Like, the track will tell you what you're following. So some guys are pickier than others. usually if I'm having a hard time finding a track, I'll try to find something at least decent and follow that. And a lot of times it'll take you to a bigger one because deer go to deer.
Right.
But the biggest, like, I try to follow really big tracks. And that's for the simple reason of I like big deer, but they're easier to follow because the stagger's much bigger, the hoof is much bigger. So when you have a buck come into a group of does, and we call it the barnyard, where there's just tracks everywhere, it's a maze. That big buck is a lot easier to follow in and out than a smaller buck. Because if you have a decent-sized buck and he gets in with a bunch of big does, that's a hard thing to sort out. My dad's much better at it than I am because he has more patience. Usually when I get into that situation, I just run a big circle around.
I was going to ask.
Try to catch him coming out, and I'm boogieing. But my dad likes to figure all that out. You know, he's more patient than me.
Is it like that's what I was going to say? When you get into that barnyard for like, is there like a way to tear that apart? And like, how much time are you spending to try and get there? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you spending 25 minutes to try and figure out where he's coming out, or are you just saying screw it, like you said, and just try and figure out where he's coming out of it?
Oh, there's guys I know that have spent 2 hours doing it, and then literally came out of it and killed the buck 30 yards later. It's just, and he was in there for 2 hours doing circles. Sometimes you just get lucky, and there's never a right or wrong way to do it. It's just preference and luck. You know, you're going to choose to do it one way or the other, and you might get lucky, you might not. Because I could run a circle around it, not see them, and then catch them coming out and shoot them. You know, or my dad can mill through there, and he could be in there with a doe, and he could shoot him there. So there's never a right or wrong way to do it.
Right.
You know, like there's guys that will never leave a track. Like they're going to follow that track to the deer. You have other guys that know where the deer is going because they know the geography and the topography really well. So they have a good idea where this buck's going. So we'll try to leave the track and like swing around on him and kill him that way. And it's all trial and error. Sometimes things work, sometimes things don't.
Is there certain tools that you bring on the track that make you successful or that you wouldn't leave at home?
Wool.
Really?
Wool, because no matter what, it can be soaking wet, and if you can move and create body heat, wool will insulate and keep you warm. It will save your life. We've all taken a bath in a stream or a swamp tracking, and it's brutal, and the wool will save your life. So wool is one of them. A gun you're confident in is another one, because if you're not good and competent with your rifle, it can ruin a good day. Other than my wool and my rifle, it's all interchangeable.
Right.
You know, it's preference. Like I wear lacrosse boots. I like, high rubber boots, so I don't have to get soaked to walk through a stream. Because the stream is like tracker's kryptonite. Like a lot of guys, that's where they quit. They won't cross it, especially if it's up over their knees.
Why wouldn't they cross it though?
They don't want to get wet, cold.
Oh.
It's uncomfortable,
Right.
Being uncomfortable turns a lot of people off to a lot of things,
Right.
So, really, like, I always bring a grunt call. I bring water, some food. I don't really eat a lot when I'm tracking. I'm pretty mission focused, and my dad, he's got to eat. So when we're hunting together, he'll be like, all right, let's take a break and eat. I'm like, come on, like, let's go. I just want to go, But I've slowed down too. But I always bring waterproof matches, 2 lighters, fire starter. I try to bring like a life straw with me, so if I run out of water, I can always just suck some out of a stream, like a space blanket. Just basic things that pack into a tiny little Ziploc that I have in my pack. So if something happens and I'm stuck and I got to spend a night in the woods, I'll live. Got to have your knife and ammo, that kind of stuff. GPS is always good to have.
Compass, backup compass?
Yeah. I always bring 3 compasses and a map, paper map, because you will have, it's very rare, but, when you get lost, you get weird and you start to second guess your compass. So you bring out a second one, because you'd be like, I swear the truck is this way, the road's this way, and then, you're like, compass is wrong. So you bring out a second compass and you match them. If they match, you're good. If they don't match, now you have a third compass as a tiebreaker. So you do that, and then, knowing how to navigate with a compass and a topographic map is like the first skill you should have before you go into big woods.
Because, you could get twisted around pretty quick because you're on the track and you don't have an idea where you're going.
Yeah, it all looks the same. The whole, like, you go in the Adirondacks and it all looks the same. It's just big mountains and woods.
Right.
So I primarily use Onyx and my Garmin to navigate. Usually Onyx because it's easy and it's simple and it's right in my phone.
So you have to download your maps prior
Yep.
to going out there, though, because you don't have no service.
Nope, I don't have service, but your GPS on your phone will work even when you don't have cell reception. So if
Okay.
you download the maps, you still can use it to navigate. And that's primarily what I use to navigate these days. But for years, I only used the map and compass. That was the first thing my dad taught me as a kid, so I always have that if I needed it.
Well, phone battery can die, could get wet, drop it in the stream. You're gonna want that backup.
Yep. I use Garmin InReach because it's nice because I can communicate with my dad. If something happens to him, he slips and breaks his ankle or something, I know where he is. You got the SOS feature, so that's always good. And that's pretty much what I use that for.
Mm-hmm.
I use Onyx mostly to navigate, but I always have the backup for a compass. So
Yeah. That Garmin InReach is they're definitely that's a life-saving tool.
it is.
Because we use them on the water, and I use them in the big woods, and and the mapping is actually halfway decent.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as what it is, but the nice thing is like if you do have a problem, you can phone home. You know what I'm saying? As far as a text message or whatever, and I bet you that's definitely one of those things you probably don't want to leave at home when you go out.
Yeah,
in the
it's
woods.
cool because and you can Bluetooth it to your phone, so you could use the EarthMate app that way, or you can just use the InReach, whatever is easier. And when you kill a buck, you can send a message home. Big buck down.
Yeah.
Big buck down. Yeah, and you bring up a valid point. Now you big buck down. Now, if you're 10 miles in, you got to go 10 miles out.
Oh yeah.
So what is like? Do you quarter them out? Like, can you do that in New York or even Maine or?
Yeah, you can quarter them out. So Maine, like I said, there's logging roads. So generally, you don't have too far of a drag. And this is relative. It might be a mile, but that's probably a pretty solid drag. Somewhere within a mile. But there's also access. So if there's a lot of snow, it's all logging country, and the paper company doesn't really care. So you can drive your snowmobile up in there and get the deer.
Right.
On some of the little roads that the old skid trail, where you can't really bring a truck. But in the Adirondacks, it's forever wild. So if I'm 5 miles from the closest road, I'm either quartering it or I'm dragging it. And
5 miles.
Yeah, Jim Massive, 80K trackers. He's carried them out for
Yep.
years.
Yeah.
Throw them on his back, carry them. Yeah, that's not me. I'll either get help or I'll drag them, quarter them. If it's really far, like we're doing a remote camp this year, and I bought a Seek Outside tent with a stove and everything, so I'm gonna try that out. But that's about 4.5 miles from the road where the tent is, so I could be shooting them 6 miles from the road, and I'll probably quarter them out and pack them at that point because
Right.
that's far. I mean, I dragged my buck out 2 years ago. Now it was like 1.5 miles, and it was pretty much out of a hole the whole way, just uphill. And I was on bare ground. I tracked him on snow, shot him as the snow was melting, and then dragged him on bare ground out by myself because my dad, my uncle, everybody was up in Maine.
And they weren't coming to help you anyways.
They would have.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they would have had had they been around. But I did send a message to my brother on the InReach, and he came up and helped me. But by the time we met up, he got all the way up north. I had about half a mile left. So, but it was a tough drag. And then, but like this year, I helped Neil drag his buck out in the Adirondacks, and that was 2.25, almost 2.5 miles. So that was on snow. That one went much better.
You think that the work is hard as the tracking aspect of knowing that you have to go all the way, wherever it takes you, but you have to come all the way out. But then when you shoot a deer, now you got to come all the way out. And the thing with tracking, and it's funny to think about, is that like you're trying to shoot the biggest deer you can possibly find and get it as close as you can to whatever, right? Like that's a far drag. That's no joke to be dragging out a deer like that.
It's a far drag. Luckily for us in the Adirondacks, the bodies aren't as big as Maine.
Yeah.
There is a blessing there, but it can be tough, But there's a lot of trails too. So if you have a deer cart and it's bare ground, you can bring the deer cart up the trail, try to get them to the closest trail and cart them out that way. That makes things a lot easier. Snow, they move a lot easier on snow.
Right.
But yeah, the way I look at it is, if I got to drag a deer out 4 miles, it's a good problem to have.
That is a good problem to have. Yeah. What does it matter? Like, it is what it is. So. One thing I do want to ask you is, and we talked about it, is guns. Because what do you think your ideal gun is for tracking? Because everybody kind of probably has their own thing. We've talked with Joe from ADK and all those guys, and they have theirs. But sometimes it's speed shooting too. It's not just a one shot and done. They're not always just laying there or standing there. Like, they could be on the move. So what do you think is your ideal tracking gun?
Yeah, most of the time you're shooting at deer that are running. That's that's why you're not as successful. You know what I mean? Because you're constantly hitting sticks and stuff. But everyone has a different preference. I would say anything that you can shoot efficiently and quickly. Some guys are really fast with a bolt action. So
Right.
where I think a bolt action's slow because I suck with it, somebody else might be really fast. I prefer lever actions. I grew up on levers. I got one over at the booth that I grew up with. I've put more rounds through that gun than anything else I've shot combined. And that gun is automatic to me. When I can close my eyes, pull it up, and it's right there. And I have different lever actions, different variations, some with scopes, some with iron sights, peep sights, removable rings, because I like to do that. So, like, if I know the weather's going to shift, I can have a scope, and then when the weather gets bad, I can pull it off, and then I got iron sights, and I don't have to worry about my scope getting all, fogged up, wet. But generally speaking, as the tracking world goes, a pump action or a lever action is the way to go. Some guys use semi-autos, like my dad likes semi-autos a lot. But there's a million ways to set them up, and that's actually what our seminar is on this weekend, is tracking rifle. Different cartridges, optics, how to set them up, what works for you, what doesn't, how to make sure it works for you.
Right.
And that's just,
What do you think your favorite cartridge is?
Probably anything in the 35 caliber range.
Okay.
Like my Marlin is in 35 rem, and that thing is drop bucks faster than anything else I've shot him with. And it's a relatively slow-moving bullet, and 200 grain doing about 200 feet per second, and it just thumps them. But I have a 358 Winchester that I love. 35 Whalen's a great one. Even the new 360 Buckhammer. I mean, the way that they market it, kind of makes it sound like 35 rem is obsolete, but they're the same essentially, just one straight wall. I wish they would market it more as like it's a good straight wall alternative to a 35 rem. That'd be great. But I think that's going to be a hammer. It's going to work good. Anything short action. I prefer short action.
Short action, right. But you're looking for that higher grain bullet too, right? A little bit heavier, because you're not trying to shoot at very far, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, most of your shots are, what's your distance, you think?
I'd say most of your shooting, tracking, and still hunting is within 100 yards,
right?
Of course. And depending on where you are, it's probably much shorter. I mean, there's windows in the Adirondacks you can shoot over 100 yards, but generally it's within 40 to 50.
Right.
And usually it's moving.
Yeah, and so you want that, not slow, but you want that hard-hitting, heavy bullet.
Yeah, I just want something that, hits them with good energy,
Right.
I want something that penetrates well, so usually I try to stick to like a monolithic bullet, like a Barnes, something, solid copper, because they don't fragment. But not every gun or cartridge is friendly to like a Spitzer bullet, like lever actions. You got to use either a flex tip, like a Hornady, or you got to use a round nose. But that is, like I love a 45-70, anything in the 30 cal. Anything in the 35, anything in there. It doesn't have to be fast. I mean, a 30-30 has killed more deer than anything.
Right.
That and a 308. So, like a 308 is a good mix of weight to speed. It's not super fast. It doesn't kick like a mule, but you can also shoot hundreds of yards.
Now, what about the .6? Just too long, you think, for the action?
It depends on what you're shooting it in. Like in a semi-auto, it doesn't matter. In a pump, it doesn't really matter. Lever actions, they're pretty much all short action. I like an .6, but I always look at it from like a bolt action perspective. I've never had too many of those because most of my guns are levers, so you don't really have a lot of long action unless you get like a BLR or the new Long Ranger. But like a bolt action standpoint, I like short action just because the bolt throw is shorter.
Right.
Like, I'm not that great with a bolt action, so I don't want something that I have a
short stroke.
If I short stroke it, I'm having a bad day and I'm mad. So I have a nice lightweight bolt action I use. It's a Savage, and I've tracked with it. It's 6.5 pounds with the scope, so it's pretty light, short 18-inch barrel. You know, I got some good stuff to it. I had to special order it from Savage because they didn't make the one I wanted in left hand. So I called them and was like, hey, you guys have a special order shop. Can you build me this gun in left hand? They're like, yep. I'm like, all right. So I want jeweled bolt, oversized bolt knob, cut the barrel, engraved the bolt, you know, all sorts of stuff. So they did that for me, and the price wasn't bad either. So I'm just not that great with a bolt action. I didn't grow up with it as much because I'm a lefty.
And it's probably hard to get a good gun or certain guns in a left-handed.
Yeah. I mean, you can get your usual, more popular, I don't want to say budget rifles, but your standard rifles you can get in left hand. But anything that's, special for one thing or the other, whether it's, lightweight or whatever, like you're going to pay a couple grand, you know what I mean, to get it in left hand. It makes it tough. Or they don't offer it. Like a Kimber, you can't get that in the left hand.
Right.
And to get like an ultralight like rifle in left hand is like $3,000, $4,000. You got to buy like a Weatherby titanium backcountry, or you got to buy like one of the Nula rifles, or and it's like, I don't got that kind of money.
Yeah, and it's gonna go in
to
the
drag
woods
through the mud.
Yeah, the mud and the ice and the snow, the rain, and
Yep.
you're gonna beat it through the trees. I mean, it's
And that's the nice thing about my Savage is it's stainless and synthetic.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have a lot of like character to it. Not a lot of emotion with that gun, but it is a tool and it works every time.
We were talking to the guys from Ruger yesterday. They were doing like a survey because it was their engineering department.
Yep.
I guess they're designing a new bolt gun, and I told them the same thing. I was like, listen, Woodstock guns are beautiful. They look great in the grip and grin pictures. They're classy looking. They have character, but give me composite because I'm going to beat the shit out of it, and they don't scratch. Right. The weather's good with them. Like, you can keep the wood. I don't care what it looks like,
Yep. Like my Marlin, my dad redid the stocks on it forever ago because those, like 70s, 80s Marlins. I mean, the JM Marlins are great, but they had like that Marsh Shield wood finish on them, and like it just doesn't last. So he redid the stocks before they got bad, and really sealed them up good. Like he went like way overboard with it. So it's pretty durable to rain and being wet and all that. But like my Browning last year, I spent like 3 days straight just soaked. Ice all over the gun, pouring rain, and by the end of the third day, I could see where the forend was starting to swell a little bit, So I had to have it sent out and sanded down and cleaned up and resealed. So now it's all sealed up good, but
that can affect accuracy too. Maybe not at that 40, 50 yard mark like you're talking about, but that wood swells up and puts a little pressure on the barrel, and it can throw a shot off by several inches.
Yep, and that 358, I mean that's solid for 300 yards. And 300 yards is, little difference is a big difference.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the farthest I've shot a deer was like 110 yards, and I was out of a tree stand. Like, farthest I've ever killed one on my feet is probably 80 with a peep sight.
really.
Yeah, that was kind of a Hail Mary more than anything else. I just got lucky, but.
And a lot of it's offhand shooting. You're not taking time to rest up against a tree or kneel or anything like that. Like a lot of it is.
Yeah, a lot of it's offhand. I mean, if I'm on my feet and I catch one walking, I'll try to, find the closest tree, get my forearm up against it, just a little brace, because it does help. But ever since I was a little kid, we'd go to the range, and I would usually take a couple off the bench or a good rest just to, work out the cobwebs and warm up a little bit, and then we'd stand. I'd, have the safety on or the hammers on half cock or whatever, and as I pulled the gun up, I'd cock the hammer and I would just shoot, and that would, it builds you that muscle memory of how the action works, how the gun feels, the way you're standing, everything in shooting. And it just builds that kind of muscle memory and confidence. So shooting offhand, honestly, I do better at something moving. Like when we have the moving targets, because you can swing with it, it's just smoother. But when you're trying to like shoot, catch the recoil, and realign it where you want, and it's like I'd rather shoot at a moving target.
And you're practicing, like you just said, moving targets. You're practicing like those scenarios at the range also.
Yeah, yep. We have moving targets and different designs for them that we've used over the years, from tires rolling down hills, and we had 2 posts with like an old ice auger motor and a cable with targets, and everything would come whip around. It was pretty cool. We'd shoot it, and you can shoot back and forth 2 different targets. It was a blast, and But, generally that first shot I can make count good, and then after that the deer's running. So then it's just reloading, then you're just shooting.
Try to put more holes in them.
Yep. Try to make the first one count, and
Yeah.
then, after that, as long as if he's not running. If he's running, just try to get him in the sight picture and just start letting him fly, because, put up a lead fence.
Yeah, exactly. Just spray and pray. Just spray and pray. That's like Steve shooting coyotes at night. He just sprays and prays.
You never know. Only takes one.
It does only take
It's
one.
fucking rain in hell on him.
That's the way to do it.
Yep. Well, man, it's been a great podcast, but I do have one last question, and we ask all of our guests this is what drives you outdoors?
What drives me? Probably the challenge. It's a challenge. I mean, I like being, having space and just being in the woods because it's beautiful, but I like the challenge. That's why I track, and hunting the big woods is because I find it to be the most difficult way to hunt. It's the most effective, truthfully.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what other way can you hunt and almost guarantee you're going to have a chance at a big buck every day? If I'm on snow and I can find a big buck track almost, every day or every other day, and if I'm on a big buck track, I have a chance to kill him. So it's really effective, but it's really difficult on you physically and mentally. I think the mental game is the hardest thing, because you can do everything right and still not get that buck. So no matter what, you just got to stay positive.
But in that mental game, like, you can really tear yourself up.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can be ready to quit, be second guessing everything that you did that day. Why am I even here? I just want to go back to the truck. And if you make the decision, you know what, I'm going to stick with it, you could kill that buck 5 minutes later. You never know.
Right.
So you got to stay positive. You can't let your mind wander. At 2 o'clock, you can't be thinking about your truck, a cup of coffee, and you want to just be ready to go.
And it's cold. It's miserable. You're tired.
Yeah, it's cold, but you're sweating and you're exhausted.
I know we're trying to wrap this up, but I just thought of this. When you're on a track and you're getting close to the end of the day, are you peeling off and working your way back to the truck as you're losing shooting light, or will you stay on the track until closing time and then walk all the way back in the dark? Like, do you draw the line at a certain point, or will you follow that track right until you run out of time?
It depends on the track, and it depends on what he's doing. So if I feel like I'm getting close and I can catch him before dark, if there's even a remote chance I'll catch him before dark, I'll hunt till dark.
Right.
But if I bump him at 4 o'clock, then and he's just lighting out, I'll still follow him for a little bit and see if he slows down quick. But usually they're motoring, especially if it's 4 o'clock and you already bumped him once or twice. He's probably starting to catch on that something's chasing him and he's gone.
Right.
And a lot of the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times when they get to going, a lot of those big mature bucks will actually come back on the track to see what you are, right?
Yeah, they'll backtrack, or what they'll do is they'll run up and they'll wait, and they'll run about 200 yards and they'll stop and they'll look back, and then that's why Hal always talks about the half-hour rule. You want to wait a half hour. If you bump a buck, wait a half hour, because they'll run up and they don't have a real good concept of time, so they'll run up, they'll stop, and they'll look at the backtrack and wait for whatever's chasing them to see if it's following. Well, if you give it them that half hour, they'll wait, and you're not coming, then they might keep on wandering. Especially late season, I've seen them run, stop, walk 50 yards, bed down. So you don't wait, you just come poking along, that buck's gone.
Gone. Because now he knows there's something behind him.
Yep.
After half an hour, they start to calm down.
Yeah, let them calm down a little bit, And some bucks are in real spooky areas where there's a lot of coyotes, a lot of pressure from predators, where sometimes it'll be 45 minutes. Where I've waited a good half hour and I still bump them, and I'm like, I think I was just sitting here for half an hour, and they will, so.
They're creatures. You never know what they're going to do.
Yeah, they're unpredictable.
Right. Absolutely. Well, man, we really appreciate you jumping on the podcast. It was an absolute blast. Can you just tell everybody where they can kind of find you, maybe social media or Big Bucks or
yeah,
whatever?
you can get a hold of me on Facebook. I'm always on there. It's Austin Scheeren. You can go on Instagram, message me there. I don't usually post a ton, but you can always get me a message there. That's the Mountain Badger.
The Mountain
Nice,
Badger.
I like it.
Ooh.
So, yeah, that's a good one. Either one of those, I'm always willing to talk, give any advice if I can, talk about guns, ammo, gear, whatever. I don't care. Just talk about deer hunting.
Absolutely.
I'm just happy for it. So.
Well, Austin, we appreciate you jumping on, man. Hopefully there's something in the future. You know, we got the little Tales from the Tailgate. I think a tracking one would be kind of cool. We'll put that in the works. And for everyone else, thanks for taking the ride right here on the Outdoor Drive.